I ask the groups that hire me to pay me an amount that feels good and right and fair to them, an amount that they can afford, and an amount that they can give joyfully. And I basically trust them, and it works out really well.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janelle Orsi. I'm in Bellingham, Washington with two guests from very north of here and very south. I'm with Dave Pollard of Bowen Island, British Columbia, whose blog howtosavetheworld.ca is a gem. Thank you for that. Dave's been getting into the sharing economy, doing some workshops on that, so it was Dave who suggested we might want to talk with Tree Bressen from Eugene, Oregon, who is a freelance group facilitator. We videoed a show with you in '06, Tree, and you were already sharing then. You were sharing a car, sharing a house, but I understand that you've got some interesting stuff going on with how you share in your livelihood. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm a freelance group facilitator. I work with a wide variety of organizations. I help them do all kinds of things that they want to do, give a bunch of trainings. For years, I did that work on a sliding scale. And then in 2004, I got inspired by a few folks that I encountered that had gone beyond that and were doing things that they were doing on a full-on gift economy basis. And I just got excited about that and felt a calling to experiment with operating that way for a year was my initial commitment. So, and it went well, so I've been doing it ever since. Every year I still check in and ask myself, is this still the right fit? So what I do is that I don't have any set fees at all for my work. I don't have a suggested amount. And this work does provide my livelihood. I mean, this is how I, pay the rent, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So I ask the groups that hire me to pay me an amount that feels good and right and fair to them, an amount that they can afford, and an amount that they can give joyfully. And I invite them to determine what amount that is. I don't give them a suggestion of how much that might be. Now, if there's other costs associated with it, a travel cost to take the train to Portland, something like that, I ask them to reimburse that over and above.
Sure.
And I basically trust them. And it works out really well. And it feels really fulfilling for me. Unfortunately, it sometimes stresses them out because it's kind of unusual request, but so far they've been willing to roll with me on it. When that comes up for them, I'll say, I'm not stressing over this. I want to invite you to not stress over it either. And it's really okay. I often don't know how much it's going to be until after the work is already complete. I'll go and do the work with them, and then a check shows up in the mail, or they hand me a check at the end of the job or something.
I mean, that's a lot of trust.
Yeah.
All the way around. But you're asking people to change their way of relating to the economy, at least. What kind of responses do you get?
It's all over the map, and it's not always what you would expect from who. I mean, there was one more institutional client, a community college, more institutional than some of my clients. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how this is going to fly with them. And to my surprise, the particular person who was the liaison and contact for that particular job, she's like, great, that's amazing. Everyone should be doing this, wonderful, and just was very enthusiastic. And then there's been, other times, where people fret about it. And as I said, I try to, the point of me doing this is not to stress people out, right? So when they're fretting, I try to help ease it. But the one thing that I try to avoid doing is naming any particular number, which is the thing that perhaps would most ease their anxiety. So there's a tension that comes up for us, I guess, when we change from what we're accustomed to a different way of doing it. But it feels so good. And I knew that in that initial year, I had some savings. I thought, I won't starve. I'm not going to end up on the street. I can do this for a year. And then it flowed so well and felt so fulfilling. And I'm sure I earned at least as much in that year as I would have earned the other way. So I've just continued to operate that way since then.
Have you found other people adopting this idea or giving other response? Has it rippled?
Definitely. So I do a lot of teaching. Probably about half the work I do is teaching and training in facilitation skills, consensus decision making, how to plan fun meetings, all that kind of stuff. And so there are students who have taken a number of workshops with me, and so some of them, as they launch their careers out in the world, are also operating in that way and experimenting with it. And then I get people email me. I have a page on my website about gift economy stuff, and so people email me from all over the country and seem to So not a huge, it's not like I've seen a wholesale adoption of this, but some people it really piques their interest and attention in a way that they do decide to maybe do some experimenting with it. So that's always fun. But I'm not doing it to influence other people. I'm doing it because I feel a genuine calling to it. I wasn't trying to model anything. I wasn't trying to, you know, I felt called. It was more of a spiritual thing for me.
Sure.
So I went with it.
Good for you. I mean, it feels to me that that's a big part of the sharing economy. The gift economy in particular is both a big shift in how we think about exchange, right, energy exchange, and I think that we have conceptual leaders talking about it, say like Charles Eisenstein, but what matters is how does it work on the ground, and that's, you've modeled it even if you set that out.
Decade now.
That says a lot. And you still are on the street, and you are still eating.
That's right. That's right. Still biking. Yeah.
Dave, in your workshops, that you know what you're looking at in terms of sharing economy, what kinds of, you know, give us a little thumbnail of that.
Well, I started doing it for the Transition Network because they were very interested in how we're going to cope with what they see as the coming economic collapse, and how can we prepare now for that. And so I started putting together these workshops, building on some of the work that Charles Eisenstein has done, some of the work that Janelle Orsi has done. And what intrigued me is that there's no common definition of what is sharing economy. So you have everything from kind of the low-level Airbnb, fascinating story, and it's better than the Hilton hotels, but it's only a small step up the scale. So what I was interested in, and what my audience was interested in, is what's at the top level of that. When we push this all the way from sharing economy all the way up to pure gift economy, what's up there that we can start looking at as a model? There were three things that interested me. One was these neighborhood circles, which in some areas are called resilience circles. One were gift circles, and the third one was this model that is being pioneered by Kindista. And what I was astonished to find was that Tree was involved in all three of those. And so I said, I shouldn't be doing these presentations. Tree should be doing these presentations. So that's why I thought she would be a great person to talk about these things. And
go for it.
Maybe she can elaborate on those.
It's interesting what you say about the terminology being, it's definitely in flux. So for years and years, I called what I was doing a gift economy. And then as I started to learn more about the gift economy, you know, reading Charles's books, exploring with people and so on, I realized that what I was doing was not actually a pure gift economy because it was a direct exchange.
Yes.
Occasionally a client barters, but it's mostly cash, you know, or they mostly pay me directly for it. And so I'm not just giving away the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I feel like if it was more of a pay it forward model or some other model, maybe then it would be a gift economy. So now I've shifted my terminology and I call what I do a joyful value exchange, or by Jove would be the tongue-in-cheek way to refer to it. So that's more how I frame it.
Okay.
So I think I see the gifting economy more like, it's like you were saying, the Airbnb is a little bit of a lower level. It is. Right. It saves people money, so it's good that way. It's some level of sharing, and yet there's a for-profit company taking out a share of it, so there's a profit motive. So some people call that share washing.
Okay, all right, like
greenwashing.
It's
not really right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so whereas like say couch surfing, people just open up their home, someone comes and stays, there's no money exchange, it's not tracked. Okay. It's not like, well, I did this many hosting days, so you get to do that many hosting days, right. And it's not direct exchange. It is more on a pay it forward model. Or there's a site like that specifically for hosting touring bicyclists called warmshowers.org. I've hosted bicyclists at my place, I've stayed at other people's places, and it's a very kind of free form type exchange in that way.
So tell us about, the three that Dave mentioned. He mentioned gifts.
The community or neighborhood circles, which are also called resilience circles in some areas. The gift circles, which is a more formal process, but I'll let Tree talk about
let's start with those two. I mean,
Okay, so I was for a few years, I was part of a local neighborhood circle, near the place that I live in Eugene, where we would get together once a month, and it actually started as kind of a reading group, and we would read different books on sustainability. We read the Transition Handbook, we read, other things, and we would kind of talk about them. We'd eat all the people in the group were gardeners. We'd eat amazing potlucks, really high quality, local, beautiful, created with love, food together, and have a quality of conversation together that was very nourishing. It was a small enough circle. We kept it small enough to meet in each other's living rooms, 10 people, that kind of thing. Not a big crowd. We felt like if it got bigger, we'd split it off or something. To be able to keep it very personal. And people would do projects, help each other out. A few of the households went in together on a worm bin composting thing. And, it's just, you need a ride to the airport or something. I don't know. People would just kind of help each other out. And so it was a deliberate choosing to engage in that way. And that just seems like a really simple model.
It is. It's neighborliness revived.
Exactly. Well, we know that we need this in our lives, right? And it just makes an enormous difference, that direct geographic and physical proximity to be able to, in fact, I even found most of the people in that group were maybe I was maybe half a mile sort of out on the edge, and I was like, now I realize I want to actually do a new circle of people who are even closer to where I am, so I'm going to start doing, inviting those people over.
The close circle.
Once a month or something. So that's one model. Tool sharing, all the kinds of things that neighbors can do really easily. The gift circles specifically were inspired by Charles Eisenstein. Some folks I know organized a speaking tour for him in the Northwest a few years ago. He came through town. People were very inspired. What can we do? And out of that came this idea to do these gift circles, where we've been for several years now running them once a month in 2 different neighborhoods of Eugene. So twice a month in Eugene, but once a month in your neighborhood, kind of thing, where people get together and simply share 3 go-rounds. First is name and maybe something I'm grateful for, just to get us in the spirit, Second go-round is, here are some things that I could offer to the other people in this room. It might be material objects that I own that I don't need anymore. It might be services, ways I could be helpful. It might be an item that I own, I don't want to give it away, but I could lend it. It might be information or resources of some kind. Like I really love to bicycle, and I've done a bunch of bike touring. So one of the things I sometimes offer is either, if you're someone who wishes you were biking more, but you feel a little stymied in it, there's some barriers there, I'm willing to offer moral support to help you think through what would make it easier for you to bike more. Or if you're wondering what are the best routes to get somewhere, or where to do a little overnight tour, I have all these maps I've accumulated. I'm really happy to help you think about routes. I have a copy machine at my house. We can, copy some stuff for you. So that might be an example of a service or information resource kind of thing to be offering. It's really wide open. And then the third round is requests. What am I seeking? What would make my life more wonderful? What are things that I'm paying for now that I don't have to be paying money for? So for example, the first gift circle I ever attended, turned out there was somebody who lived in my neighborhood, and one of the things that she offered was that she had a pickup truck that was sitting parked at her daughter's house. Actually, it was her daughter who lived in my neighborhood. It was sitting parked there and rarely used. And she said, anyone needs to borrow a car. Hey, next time I needed a car, I went and borrowed her car 5 days. She let me take her car off for a trip for 5 days off into the Coast Range, and we'd never met before. Wow. So she also was very trusting, right? She handed me the car keys, and I could tell she wasn't tense about it at all. Like, have a great time. Sent me off, and 5 days later, her car's back, keys are back in the mailbox and everything. Car's in good condition. Filled up the tank with gas, right? I'm doing what I can to, make it to respond well and fulfill her trust in me, right? When someone trusts me, I want them to feel good about how that turned out. And so now imagine how much money would I have had to pay to rent a car for those 5 days, and I didn't have to pay any of that. So it's directly cost savings, and given the current economic conditions, makes a big difference. So now it does require a level of vulnerability for people to say their request. In that case, she offered, right? I didn't even request it.
Yes, I was going to say that. It's like people are in control here of here's what I'm willing, what I'm looking for.
Yes.
And you have to, and you may not be, you may not have it met.
Oh yeah, there's no guarantee that these things get met.
Of course.
There's no promises extracted or anything like that. And let's say I come to a gift circle and I say, I can offer massage. Well, let's say 10 people come up to me at the end, everyone at the circle, oh, I'd love a massage. I might get a little overwhelmed. Well, there's nothing that says I have to give a massage to all 10 people.
Sure.
I can say, well, you know, I'll schedule you in over time, or I'm going to do it for you and not for the others. It's, you know, we don't take these things personally. We assume and trust that we want it to feel genuinely joyful in the giving. So we do say, once you've said you'll do it and made the arrangement, follow through.
Okay. Okay, and that's, I can see that would be part of what makes a gift circle work is is the responsibility, being responsible for what you commit, because then it can deepen. Has that happened? Has people expanded their offerings?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
or the requests,
and it deepens the relationships,
of course,
too. I mean, for example, I caught the flu and I was sick for a few days and I was at home, and I don't live in community anymore. That's something that has changed since our last interview, and I'm living alone presently and I'm enjoying that. But I was sick for 3 days, not really well enough to go out, and I got to the point by the end of the 3rd day where I was kind of lonely, kind of, you know, like, and I could have called different friends to come over, but I thought, you know, there's that nice woman from the gift circles who every time at the gift circle she says, if you're ever sick and you need some soup or some company or something, call me. And I thought, why not?
Sure.
And so I actually ended up putting out on email to her and to a few of my friends, and she happened to respond within 5 minutes. The phone rang. She said, I haven't checked my email all day. I just checked it and I saw that I'd be happy to come by. And so she came by and just visited with me for an hour, brought over some kombucha, you know, we sat, it was just what I needed. And that never would have happened were it not for the gift circle.
Yeah.
Now, you know, in theory, some of my friends could have responded too, and over the next hours and days, you know, some of them did, but she was kind of the first one. She was right on it, and I never would have even included her had it not been from the connection at the gift circle.
Got it.
That she had consistently offered that.
What I see here is that you're enriching your world with possibilities that you hadn't maybe even considered. I mean, someone may come up with a request of something you'd never even thought to offer, but you could because you'd never thought about it.
Happens all the time. I feel like a lot of the things I end up offering are in response to hearing other people's requests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When we saw a presentation by David Van Seters on the sharing economy, and it's like I suddenly realized that if people are using sort of unused or limited use assets, you know, of the things you listed, it's like, I never thought about that.
The average household drill gets used how many times per year? I mean, it's,
14 minutes.
14
minutes a year?
14 minutes a year.
I think mine gets used at least 16 minutes a year. But maybe even an hour, but maybe not.
So what really interested me was this idea of Kindista, which I think, did it start in Eugene?
It did. The folks who wrote that software.
Tell me, I have never heard of this. What is this?
It's kind of like the same thing on moved online. It's the idea of the gift circle moved online. And I didn't think it would be able to make the transition, but it looks like it has.
It's doing great. So there's this website, kindista.org.
Spelled?
K-I-N-D, like kindness.
And being kind.
And then I-S-T-A.
Okay.
Kindista.org. Wonderful website, written by a couple of great, dedicated people who did this, of course, as volunteers. It's not like someone funded them to do it.
They did it for the gift economy.
They did, absolutely. Yeah. It was their dream, and they worked very hard on it for a number of years and launched it, I don't know, a year or two ago, something like that. And then, and it's the online version. You post offers, you post requests, and the currency of the site is gratitude. So when someone does something, you post a little statement. You know, oh, Janelle, thank you so much for, you know, supporting me in this way. And that way, if you write to someone else, you know, with, like if you are responding to someone else's offer and you're, you know, yes, I'd like to take you up on that, they can kind of go and look at your user profile and say, oh, she's been generous in the community.
Okay.
She's been helping people. So even though I don't personally know her, I see that she's, you know, a good soul, and I'm going to go ahead and, you know, support her back in that way.
Now, is this only in Eugene?
No, this website, people can now join from anywhere in the world.
Let's spread this around, folks.
Yeah.
Kindista,
Sign up, kindista.org. Check it out. Now, when you first sign up, if you're the only one in your location, you know, there's not going to be other people to exchange. So what you have to do is both sign up and get other people in your town to sign up.
I would see that's a fabulous opportunity to do your own gift circle in your own town if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Or email all your friends or whatever.
That's Eugene now has a substantial user base, and there's a few other locations, Portland, and there's some town in North Carolina as well. So these are the first 3 places where enough people have signed on that it's really useful. I have a presentation coming up next month. I have a presentation coming up, and I needed to research something that I'm not very knowledgeable about. I did some searching online. I thought, oh, I should read this book. Well, I went and looked, and that book was checked out of the library. It wasn't going to be back in time. Someone else had a hold on it. It wasn't going to be back in time. I thought, well, somebody else must have this book. I posted it on Kindista. I'm looking for this book, and I I'm trying to get it by, I was looking for it within a few days, because even though the presentation wasn't until next month, like I need the time to read the book, assimilate what it said, and so on. What do you know? Within a couple days, somebody posts back, oh yeah, I have that book. You're like, give me a call, come by my house, pick it up, no problem.
Fabulous.
And I went there, I got not only that book, he said, look at the shelf of the other books while you're here. There's other books on similar topics. I grabbed another book from him. And now I have the research materials that I need that happen to be checked out from the public library, so they weren't available.
I love it. I love it. I mean, and you've answered something that's like, I get books on all of these topics, and I want to share them. I mean, I don't need to, I just want to read them and then move it along. This sounds like a wonderful
And that's an example of a case where he was responding to my request. It's not that he had posted his whole library already, although you could. You could post all your books on Kindista.
Oh my Lord. Yeah.
And you can set what geographic radius, how far out you want to go. So, or if you relocate, you can reset your location.
I know that you were saying that Janelle Orsi influenced you.
Yeah.
There may be other aspects of the share economy we haven't talked about. You've done a presentation. Tell us what's next.
A little bit about how I have found Janelle's framing about sharing economy to be very useful. Law on the Sharing Economy or something.
That's her most recent book. Okay, great.
Well, she wrote the Sharing Solution.
The Sharing Solution.
Yeah, that was like her original, like here's how to do sharing stuff. Yeah, the more recent one is specifically about legal things in the sharing economy. So she's got a couple books out there.
Right.
And you come over, knock on the door one day, hey, I'm looking for a drill. My battery died on mine. Can I borrow one? I say, sure. I hand you my drill, right? So that's level 1, casual, spontaneous. Probably most likely embedded within existing relationships. That's who we do a lot of that sharing with, but could be a pay it forward. I could bike through the espresso stand and I could pay it forward. I could say, put in extra money, this is for the next person in line. So you can do it with strangers. It's more commonly done among people who already know each other. Level 1. Level 2 is some kind of ongoing agreement. You and I work something out that says, you can come borrow my drill anytime, and I can borrow your circular saw, or something, right?
Yep.
So it's some kind of ongoing exchange. It's particularly, I think a really common area where this happens is childcare.
Oh, sure.
Because in the nuclear family model, it's really hard, right?
Oh,
so people end up with an ongoing arrangement. Kids go to your house on Tuesdays, my house on Thursdays, and help each other out in that way. Saves all the parents a lot of time, right? Some kind of little childcare thing. The third level is when there's an organizational framework. So for example, when I was part of that neighborhood circle, the 10 households in that neighborhood, we started cataloging our tools, and we wanted to actually create kind of an official thing about being able to lend our tools to each other. Or maybe there's a child care co-op that creates an organizational identity that goes beyond, like a family might come and a family might go, their kids age out, that kind of thing, but the organizational entity continues.
Got it. Yes.
So that's a whole different level. When you get up to that, that's level 3.
Like the tool libraries and so on?
Exactly, like a tool library. Yeah. Okay. Now level 4 is when you have, more like multi-stakeholder players, more elaborate, like let's say you have, let's say take the tool library example. Let's say your city sets aside the spaces for the tool libraries. The local community college helps provide instructors who will help teach people how to use the tools. Maybe there's a nonprofit that helps staff the tool library with volunteers who help out. Maybe some people do a crowdfunding campaign to help fund the acquisition of tools that are, bigger, more expensive tools. Maybe you get some local businesses to donate some of the smaller scale tools, and you kind of put all that together. That's when you're in a whole nother level of what is possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the level that, for me, is the huge growth area, at least in the place where I live, in Eugene. We have a lot of great organizations doing wonderful stuff, a lot of strong relationships where people make arrangements, but the level 4 of the, put it all together into a bigger vision of what the sharing economy can be, that's the part that I'm really hoping to see take off in the coming years. I think that's the part where we're not there yet.
And that's a fabulous, exciting model, because there's a synergy there that everybody gets to benefit in a bigger way. Actually, what you remind me of, I'm jumping the topic for a second, but Dave, you had mentioned that in Eugene there were it's a very fertile ground where Tree lives for the sharing economy.
Right.
Map jams, tell me, what was this?
Well, Map Jam, that was not specific to Eugene. Map Jam was an initiative organized by shareable.net, which is another wonderful, major sharing economy website and kind of a portal website where you can find a lot of other information through their site.
Okay.
And so they organized these Map Jams, and they did it, I think, all over the world. It wasn't even just US. I think people were doing them in other countries.
Yep.
So they encouraged a local contact to take responsibility to organize a set of people in their town to sit down together and using some kind of interface with Google Maps to list out sort of nodes of sharing economic activity. Here's our co-working space, here's our intentional community household, here's our car share, here's our tool library, here's our seed library, here's our... Right.
The Saturday market.
Yeah.
All kinds of things, like local and small scale economic activity, and to put it all together onto one map. Maybe when you helped do ours, it was color coded with different categories.
Yeah.
And, you know, here's our free health clinic. Here's our, you know, so it's depending what category
The food bank.
service.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
to give you an idea of what
Gardens.
the possibilities
Wow.
are.
Yeah,
when you start to think, when you start to realize this, every sector of the economy, there are opportunities to involve these sharing economy models.
Yeah, so they were trying to display that and you know, create it so that someone who wanted to know, okay, what are the options here where I live, could access it, and hopefully also add more to it over time as well. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm excited to take a look.
There's one thing on here that I have to address because people always ask this, getting back to the basic income thing.
Yes.
People always say, what if a group pays you too low? This is the first question people usually ask me.
Of course, I expect
when
that.
I talk about that model. And so, so my deal about that, what it has been, is that a group pays sort of too low, I go ahead and accept it. I don't raise a fuss about it or anything. If that same group later comes back and says, we'd like, you know, loved your work, would love to have you do another meeting for us, another training for us, I say I'd be happy to work with you more, and the amount you paid me last time is too low to be sustainable for me to continue working with you. So, you know, can you bump it up a notch? And then they do.
Good.
And so it's, yeah, that's
Lovely bit of feedback. Yeah, I think that's an important part of this is for it to be sustainable, it has to be sustainable. Hello?
Yeah, and we
Right.
do have to be able to be honest with each other about that.
Yes.
So part of this is about building the personal self-awareness and communication skills, to be able to speak with each other directly and honestly about these things. You know, to go to a gift circle and say vulnerably, like, well, I need help with this. That's a challenge for people.
Yeah.
So to be willing to step into that, you know, and so yeah, if a client, you know, asks me directly, like, how is this amount for you? My inclination is to be honest with them, even though I sometimes feel a little awkward about it because I don't want to not be honest. I'm trying to be honest. So, but I try to do that really respectfully and gently. And so there's a skill learning around communication with this that we're all still coming into.
I think it's no surprise that somebody who's involved, as you are, with assisting communications gets to practice that in new ways. What I experience with you is there's a level of joy expanded from even when we met you before. It's like you're having a good time with this and you're richer for it and your whole community is richer for it.
And we know that the economy as it's currently structured doesn't serve people's needs. We know that. So it's just a matter of what are we going to do together instead. And I really appreciate all the people out there who are, and there's lots of them that we haven't even had time to mention in the video, who are inspiring me and teaching and leading as well to, you know, what's one next step we could take? Okay, what's the second next step? Yeah.
And it's inviting that creativity, just as I say in your workshops.
Yeah. And it could be as simple as potluck. Read up on some of these resources on the sharing economy so you know what other neighborhoods are doing. Invite all of your neighbors, including the ones that you've never met before, to a potluck. Get together and just chat casually about what other neighborhoods are doing. And I'll bet you something will catch.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both. This is inspiring and may it, well, it has to, but we want it to, because that's the world we want to live in.
Right.
What you're doing.
Right. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. That's the phrase that Charles Eisenstein uses. A lovely, evocative phrase.
The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. You're watching Peak Moment TV, and we have people who are living into that. I'm with Tree Bressen, Dave Pollard. I'm Janelle Orsi. Join us next time.